Hi, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Cathy Neptune, and I'm going to share tips, tools, and recipes to make your time in the kitchen fun, fast, and fabulous. Right now we're taking advantage of the bounty of the end of the season tomatoes and fresh basil and herbs. We're going to make some tomato basil squares, which is a fresh take on pizza, and it's very different, and I think you're going to love it. It's very simple, and it uses a lot of ingredients that you might already have on hand, plus fresh tomatoes and basil. So then for dessert, very refreshing, light, something different. We're going to do appleberry salsa with cinnamon chips, and that's a no-bake dessert or an appetizer as well. Great to munch on. So let's get started with our tomato basil squares. I have our oven preheating at 350, and I'm using a baking stone here, and I've talked a lot about baking stones and the advantages to using a stone. This is not preheated. You don't have to preheat these specific stones. And don't forget to email me. A lot of you have emailed me for the recipes and resources for these products. So I'm happy to share that with you. It's all part of your tools in the kitchen, and you can't build a good dinner or menu without the proper tools. So I'm using a rectangle stone. I stretch the bread dough out, and remember my tip on stretching out bread dough. If it gives you a difficult time and you find that it isn't cooperating and it just pulls back, it's best to have your bread dough or pizza dough at room temperature. And never take a rolling pin that activates the gluten and gives it more toughness and elasticity. So it's always good to just stretch it out a little at a time. And I always add olive oil on the stone or to the dough, rub it all over so that it gives it a nice flavor as you roast the pizza in the oven. So we've stretched out our bread dough, and I added mozzarella, shredded mozzarella to the bottom of the crust. And I've sliced some fresh garden tomatoes. And did you know, if it isn't tomato season, you can make this any time of year and use plum tomatoes or the Roma tomatoes because they're fairly consistent all year long. And they don't have a lot of seeds and pulp in them. If you're using fresh tomatoes or the larger tomatoes, and you find they're very juicy this time of year, you can always squeeze a little bit of the juice and the seeds out with your hand, cut them in half, and then slice them, and you'll have less of a bitter taste to your tomatoes or a watery pizza. And seeds, you may or may not know, in your sauces too, that adds a little bit of bitterness. So it's always good if you have the opportunity to squeeze the seeds out. So we're going to set that aside, and we're going to make our filling here. And I'm starting with 2/3 cup of mayonnaise, and I use the light mayonnaise. And we're going to add some fresh basil. And the way you slice your basil or cut it up, you roll it in a cigar fashion and then take your knife and slice across like so, and it's called a chiffonade of basil. Fancy term to use, but it works really well. We're going to take fresh garlic, put it in here, and always use fresh garlic. It makes such a huge difference in your final product. And we're going to press the garlic inside this mixture. And on the dough, by the way, I bought a 2-cup package of mozzarella shredded, and we put half of that amount on the bread dough, and then the other 1 cup goes into our mixture in the bowl. Boy, this smells really good. And we use about a 1/3 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And again, it makes such a huge difference when you use fresh ingredients. The finished product is amazing. So we're going to take this, blend it all together, and what you could do is you can make this mixture ahead of time and leave it in the bowl and refrigerate it. And then just before you're ready to assemble everything, you can take it out and use it right away. So I'm using an ice cream scoop, a stainless steel scoop. I love using these. It just makes life a little bit easier. And I have 3 sizes of these in my kitchen. This is the large one. Ice cream scoops like this are great for measuring out when you're doing full-size muffins, because you get a consistent amount of batter. The smaller ones I use for doing cookies, because again, you get a consistent size of cookie. And the real small one I use for appetizer scoops. I like to make life easy. Who has extra time to be in the kitchen? You know, you'd rather be doing something else during the day. This just makes your life easier, and nothing wrong with that. So there, we want exactly that much on there, approximately. And then you don't have to even spread this out, because when you bake it in the oven, it's going to spread out on its own and form a sauce over the top of your pizza. So that's all there is to it. We're going to bake it at 350 for approximately 20 minutes or until it looks golden brown and done. And wait until you see this when it comes out. When we come back, we're going to do our appleberry salsa with cinnamon chips. See you in a minute. Hi, welcome back to Cathy Neptune's Kitchen. Now we're finishing off our dessert, or as I mentioned, you can use this as a great appetizer or just a munchie out on a deck on a cool summer evening or a warm fall night. We're making our appleberry salsa with cinnamon chips, and there's nothing really that I'm using in these ingredients tonight that need to be baked, unless you're making the cinnamon chips, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But right now we want to take and start in on the appleberry salsa. And great time to make this is also during the strawberry season when they're plentiful, but you can usually get strawberries year-round. And we want about a cup of strawberries. And I'm using, we talk about tools, I love this tool. This is the Core and More. It has little teeth on the end of it. And when you want to hull a strawberry, you never buy one strawberry, you usually have a bunch of them. And you just scoop off the top of your strawberry instead of using a knife and cutting off the whole end. Also used it for the kiwi, because they have little nubs on the kiwi, the top and the bottom of them. And it just saves a lot of grief. I love this too. For, you know, pineapples, when you buy fresh pineapples, they have those little dots all over them, and you can't get them off with a peeler or a knife or a spoon. This is perfect. So again, making your life easy, we're just, this is the way to go. And if you don't like to cook anyway, you don't want to be in the kitchen any longer than you have to be. So great thing to have good tools. So we're hulling all these, and I have 2 kiwi here. The recipe usually calls for 1 kiwi, but these are fairly small, so you can just eyeball it. And again, I have my email address on the bottom of the screen, borntocook@aol.com. Email me, and I'll be happy to send you the recipes and instructions and resources for these great tools. So many of you have written in with your comments and your trying the recipes, and I so appreciate the feedback. It's really fun to hear back, so feel free to do that at any time. My chopper, love this. It rotates when you use it, so we're going to chop up these kiwi, and we're going to put them into a bowl, and you can do as finely as you want, or I like bigger chunks. They just work better. I hope you can hear me over the chopping, but I want people to know that it's kiwi and it's not, you know, just sliced green grapes. And kiwi is very good for you. So it's as quick as that. Now, if you put this in a blender, you'd end up with liquid, and that's not a good thing to do. Another great tool, instead of having to lift the whole cutting board, I just scrape everything together and into the bowl. And we're going to do our strawberries. And you can slice the strawberries if you want. If you have an egg slicer, that's a good way to go. So this one here makes a little effort and a great finished product. And I'm going to tell you about using the cinnamon chips. Did you know you can make your own cinnamon chips? with pita bread. And tonight I bought store-bought ones, but I want you to know if you can't find them, or if you're on a budget, it's easier and less expensive to make your own. And all you do is take pita bread slices, any size you want, but I use the regular 8-inch, 6 or 8-inch size. And you brush them with water and sprinkle them with a cinnamon sugar mixture, about a tablespoon of cinnamon to about half a cup of sugar. And then you bake them at 350, and I use my baking stone, or you could use a cookie sheet. And you bake them, and then you have your pita chips or your cinnamon chips that are baked to use with the salsa, and it's really, really good. Now we're going to zest an orange, and we're going to juice this too, but you always want to zest your citrus before you juice it, or you're going to have problems. So it's good to zest it first, and this is a fairly large orange. And again, I'm not too big into measuring, as you know, but this, pizza's getting done. Tomato basil squares, rather. So the good thing about the stones, you can let them go to however long you want, and they don't really burn right away like an aluminum sheet would. You get a little more leeway. So this here, we'll probably get about 2 teaspoons of zest from one large orange. And then we're going to juice it. You know, sometimes I didn't have an orange, and I've used lime juice in this, and it's very good. It adds a different flavor, but it's very good. Now you can add, if your fruit isn't sweet enough, which I don't find this time of year, I find most of the fruits are very sweet, you could add about a tablespoon of brown sugar to help sweeten them. But this time of year, they're very sweet. So we're going to juice the orange. And did you know you get about a 1/4 cup of fresh juice from this size orange? So if you want to measure, you can. But you just want, remember you have the orange zest in here, which where most of your flavor is. And so we're putting that in there. Into that, I'm going to add 2 apples. And remember this, our apple peel liqueur slicer. Love this time of year. I bring it out. I use it all year round, but especially this time of year. And you remember, I use it too for potatoes. So I'm using green Granny Smith apples because I find they don't turn brown as quickly as some of the others. And they have a great integrity when you put them in pies. Look at this, how fun is that? So you caught it, peeled it, and sliced it. So we're gonna put that. Can you imagine when you're doing a pie, and look, there's no waste on that at all. Those are great to put on your stovetop in a pot with a little bit of water and cinnamon. It'll make everyone think you're making apple pies. And great for great aroma in your kitchen. So 2 apples, quick and easy. We're going to put that aside. And then I like to have chunks of something, so you can just slice it down this way, going around the core. I'm going to add this to the bowl. And we are almost done. How quick is that? Look at how colorful that is. And of course, you don't have to use the Granny Smith if you don't want, but I find they're very consistent, very reliable, and very accessible at any store. But you can certainly use your favorites. Those go in. Oh, it smells awesome. And then, to help sweeten it and give it a different flavor, you can use apple jelly. I have a pear jelly here, and this helps sweeten it as well. So we're going to add about 2 tablespoons. And again, I'll be happy to send you the recipe for this. And we're gonna fold it all in. Look at the colors. And this is healthy. It's a great way for fussy eaters. If you have fussy eaters at home, and mostly it's children, but it can be anybody, this is a great go-to recipe. And you don't have to worry about filling them with things that are too salty or too sweet, because the flavors of the fruit this time of year are just awesome. Now you can mix this up too with different varieties of fruit. If you're not fond of kiwi, I've done chunks of pineapple in here, and you can just use the crushed kind, but just make sure you drain them well. So we're going to take our little bowl and put some in here. Imagine how pretty this would be if you were having guests or you just wanted to bring this somewhere. It makes a lot. You can certainly double the recipe, but there's plenty here, and the longer it sits, the better it is. So you can certainly make this the night before. It has the citrus in it, so you don't have to worry about it changing colors. And I bought some cinnamon chips already made, but now that you have the recipe to make your own chips, cinnamon chips, you could certainly do that with the pita bread that you have and the cinnamon and sugar that you add into it. So that's our appleberry salsa with cinnamon chips. And I'm going to check on our tomato basil squares, and I'll be back in a minute. Hey, welcome back. Look at our wonderful, awesome tomato basil squares. Don't they look fabulous? And I always use a pizza cutter. The dough is amazing. The fresh tomatoes are just the best this time of year. And you know, if you don't have fresh tomatoes in the house, I always keep a can of oven roasted or fire roasted tomatoes and drain them very well in a colander, and you can use those, and they have the same wonderful flavor as fresh tomatoes, but almost as good. Nothing beats a fresh tomato. So you're going to enjoy this. You could serve them in smaller pieces as an appetizer. You can just smell the garlic, the fresh basil, the cheeses. It's awesome. And you can see that the sauce spread throughout and made a wonderful, wonderful and consistent topping for your tomato basil squares. And adding in our appleberry salsa with cinnamon chips. What a wonderful evening feast for you to celebrate the end of summer and the beginning of fall. I hope you try these recipes at home for you, your family, and your friends. And don't forget to email me with questions, or if you'd like the recipes or resources for the tools. Thank you so much for watching, and may the fork be with you.